Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this video. This is Doug with News and Views by Doug. And for anyone that's new to the channel, this is where I give my observations and opinions of world events, politics, and pretty much anything else I feel like talking about. And I'll tell you, the last couple of days, there's been so much going on. So, off to the Persian Gulf and Iran with what's going on there. So over the weekend, Iran and the U.S. exchanged weapons, combat, and it's all because the Iranians keep breaking the supposed ceasefire, and they walked away from the negotiations in Switzerland. So the U.S. hit Iran pretty hard after Iran went after several ships in the Persian Gulf, and then they launched drones towards Kuwait and Bahrain. So reportedly, according to the U.S., they claim that Iran called them up, said, "Hey, we need to meet. We need to end this war." So we were supposed to meet today in Qatar. Apparently, U.S. negotiators showed up, but the Iranians didn't, and the Iranians are claiming that they never made that phone call. But there's a lot of things going on in Iran right now. Yesterday, between 5 to 7 IRGC leaders were assassinated. And 2 of them were assassinated outside their homes, and you'll see that video. One of the main leaders of the IRGC, a Rear Admiral Mohammed Akbar Zalid, he was in charge of the Iranian Navy, most of them at the bottom of the Persian Gulf now, most of the ships. But he was one of the main guys that's been firing drones and missiles into the Gulf to hit the ships. And Iran said that he died in a tragic car crash. And the car had rolled over and he died in it. How convenient. Every time one of the leaders was killed and the apartment was on fire, Iran kept saying, "Oh, it was just a gas leak." So I wonder if this car crash was a gas leak. But there's lots of information coming out now that, we have the Kurds fighting in northwestern Iran, and they're fighting the IRGC and apparently killing a lot of the IRGC. The Kurds are pretty tough, and they've been fighting for years, and they have the experience. But there's also word coming out that the actual many members of the government of Iran, civilian part, are trying to dismantle the IRGC and their power. And they want to bring in a more moderate government and negotiate with the United States. And of course, the hardliners are going to fight it. People have been rioting in the streets. But, we'll see what's happening. But they said there was a political influencer who's supposed to be an expert on Iranian politics, and his name is Mahid. Let me see if I get this right. Madei Koharashan. Can't say these names. He's supposed to be an expert on Iranian politics, and he actually went public and went online, basically saying that this is happening, that they're trying to dismantle the power of the IRGC and get them out of the government. So, we'll see what happens. One thing I found interesting, here in the United States, we are trying to get rid of a lot of the illegal immigrants, and President Trump has authorized the ICE and Homeland Security to deport these people who are here illegally. And, many of the left are saying that's just pure evil. And we have Syrians and Haitians and Venezuelans that are in the United States that they were allowed to stay here temporarily as refugees to escape the violence of their countries, or humanitarian. Maybe there was a disaster or something. Well, President Trump lifted those temporary protections. I keep saying temporary because apparently the left doesn't understand the word temporary. But it's come out that, especially with the Haitians, a large majority of them have been here for years and still on welfare, still sucking off the government's tit. And, I know that if you went to a Home Depot here in San Diego, usually there was a lot of day laborers that were Hispanic and they were standing out front. And they were replaced suddenly by Haitians. And then reports were coming out of Tijuana that the Mexicans working in the shops were replaced by Haitians. So there's problems all around the world with immigrants. You've got rioting in Northern Ireland and Scotland and England trying to get rid of all the Islamic immigrants, the Muslims. You've got protests in Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, and they're all beginning to deport their Muslims. Japan is deporting Africans. I said yesterday's video that Cambodia, of all people, they told all the Africans get out of the country by May 31st or go to prison. Well, it's coming out now that, and this is the odd one, South Africa. The South Africans, and the majority of them being black Africans, they're tired of all the illegal immigrants. And they've been rioting, and it's been turning violent. They're protesting. They want all the immigrants, the illegal ones, out of their country. But they're not even waiting to find out this person's legal or illegal. They're attacking them. Australia has protested against the Muslims. And it just continues around the world. Nations of this world do not want illegal immigrants. And most of these illegal immigrants are coming from Africa and the Middle East. I'm going to show you a video here. And it's the Muslim takeover. And what they do is they bring in a few hundred. They concentrate in an area, a city. They start multiplying like rabbits. And next thing you know, they move into elections with school districts, city politics, and next thing you know, they're running for Congress. And that's what they've done around the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, that wasn't Afghanistan, that wasn't Pakistan, that wasn't Saudi Arabia, hell, that wasn't the Islamic Republic of Iran. That was our very own Dearborn, Michigan. And before you say, well, Brandon, Dearborn's been lost for a long time now, as if that makes it any better, well, it was also in Chicago. It was also in Houston. It was also in Zohran Mamdani's New York City. It was also in England. It was also in Australia. It was also in Germany. It was also in Denmark. And
England, most of the large cities, mayors, are Pakistani. Now, a report finally came out in England, or the UK, that there's been, for the last 15 years, these men from Pakistan have formed what they call grooming gang rapes. And the report came out that over 250,000 young girls from preteen to young teen were raped. And you're going to see in the video here that the one prime minister who got the report done, he's actually given some of the descriptions of what happened to these young girls. And it's absolutely disgusting.
Of grooming gang abuse. He presented findings from a 219-page independent report called the Rape Gang Inquiry. The report was released after more than 260,000 people signed a petition demanding greater transparency and accountability.
The Rape Gang Inquiry. What happens next? I intend to use my parliamentary privilege to name perpetrators and their enablers in the chamber. This will be done incredibly carefully with our legal team involved every step of the way to ensure that no future prosecutions are jeopardized. We are cooperating with the authorities in order to help cases be opened and reopened, but my faith in the system to independently deliver justice is not high.
I sincerely urge this Parliament to listen to the testimonies from these brave survivors and to act, to finally act. So the first testimony, he took his pants down, penetrated me, had sex with me. He then stopped before ejaculation. He picked up the bottle of Jack Daniels, which was now empty, and he forced it up inside me. He broke the glass while he was there. At that point, I was about 12, nearly 13. Another testimony. I was held down by the men as they each took turns to orally and vaginally rape me, taking it in turns to pin down my arms and my legs. When the assault ended, the men hit me repeatedly, threatened to find me, kill me, and harmed my loved ones if I ever told anybody what had happened. Another. Comments were constantly made suggesting that white girls, the Christian girls, were viewed as having fewer morals or lower values, whereas Muslim girls were described by some of the men as having dignity and higher moral standing. These comparisons were used to justify the way I was treated and to further humiliate and control me. Another. She was a white woman herself, who I imagine may have been groomed, and has obviously now married into the family, shouting obscenities at us. Throughout the whole sentencing, she was constantly saying, "Fucking liars, lying white bitches." She said to me that God will be the witness for what happens to me. Another. Race did play a part and motivated the selection or demographic of the victims. Throughout my exploitation, the other girls I encountered or who were abused alongside me were almost exclusively white. Another. She had a baby by him, and his dad was an imam. His dad knew. And he got his son married and said that he wasn't allowed to see the child. They look after their own community. Another. Over the course of the abuse, I was raped by multiple police officers in different parts of the country. Another. He put a cigarette out on the baby's face. Another. It started when I was 13. I was raped by probably about 600 or 700 different men over 3 years.
Every good man in England should rise up and just destroy these people, find out who they are, and destroy them. Well, it turns out, Keir Starmer, their prime minister, he just resigned last week. He resigned a couple of days after the report came out, because here's what happened. It's been found out that when he was in charge, he was a lawyer, and he was in charge of the prosecution part of the United Kingdom's government. He wasn't prosecuting these men when they were arrested. He basically, the department said, oh, they haven't integrated. They're not used to the English culture, the Western culture. And in their culture, it's okay to rape little girls. But these people were specifically going after little white girls. Not black, not Asian, not Muslim. They're going after white girls because they saw them as immoral and below them. And it was okay to rape these girls. Over 250,000 of these young girls affected for the rest of their lives. There's also a video here that you're going to see, and it's a member of parliament who is trying to get the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, Pakistani, who came to power in London because of all the Pakistanis there, and they voted him in. This is the same clown who wanted to outlaw knives. They've already taken away the guns of the English, but he wanted to outlaw knives. Can't make this shit up. But this woman was trying to ask him questions, very simple questions. And he kept saying he didn't understand. Could she make it any simpler? And she made it as simple as she could. Any moron would understand what she was saying. But nope, not Khan. He kept deflecting. And you'll see that in the video.
Exactly how much clearer do you want me to be? So I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
So the situation in London in relation to young people being groomed is different to other parts of the country. So what we have in London is young people being groomed, use your words, not mine, to be using county lines. In relation to sometimes...
Okay, let me make it clear. Sorry, I wasn't clear enough. I was told I shouldn't be saying rape gangs. They are rape gangs. I'm talking about rape gangs. I'm not talking about country lines. But to go back, nobody likes me saying rape gangs, although they are rape gangs. Grooming gangs that I would call rape gangs. Tell me about them. How many of those have we got? Not country lines, those particular groups.
To avoid any misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes, if you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for you to misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that. It's all over the television. You know exactly what I mean by that. These gangs of people that are grooming young girls for sex. Do we actually have those in London?
Today we need to give a full answer. Can she be clear what she means by that? I'm not clear what she means.
How much clearer do you want me to be? Look at the gangs that they've uncovered in other parts of the country. Do we have those gangs in London? It's a simple question. The answer is very simple. It's yes or no. I'm not asking you where those gangs are because the police might not want them to be disclosed. I'm asking you, do we have those sort of gangs in London?
I'm not sure why she's so nervous to say what she means. What do you mean?
No. I'm saying exactly what I mean. I'm saying, have we got any of those grooming gangs in London?
I'm unclear, Chair, what is meant by the question. If she could spell it out, I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening? It's the sort of gangs that groom young girls at a young age for sex. Exactly how much clearer do you want me to be?
So we do have issues in London with young girls being groomed for county lines. Some of those girls are used for sex. And that's one of the reasons why I've set up things like the Lighthouse, funded by City Hall, why we've set up 4 hubs that help survivors of child sexual abuse, why we're investing in London's Violence and Exploitation Support Service, why I commissioned the HMI to look into the issue of child exploitation, why the Met Police Service now employs 1,200 child protection officers, why we have Operation Soteria, first begun in London, why we're the only police force that began the V100, targeting the 100 most violent
I just
young
asked
people.
a yes-no question. So approximately how many of these gangs that I am talking about, that I do not know why you don't understand the sort of gangs I'm talking about, exactly, or approximately, I should say, to give you leeway, approximately how many of those gangs have we got in London? Because the public is very, very rightfully concerned about this and concerned about these young women.
Well, I'm still none the wiser why she's so nervous about saying what she means. But in London, we have V100, which are the 100 most prolific, dangerous people the police target. That number goes up and down. So one month, the V100 may be 120 people, or one month there may be 80 people, and each BCU has a localized V number. So when I was in Croydon a few weeks ago, the V number wasn't 100, it was a bit below. But as they reminded me, people can sometimes go in that list or out that list.
Thank you. Chairman, I was very clear in what I was talking about. I just don't understand what it is that the Mayor wants me to say that's any different. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
It's just out of control. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court this morning gave 2 announcements. And one of them was to be expected. When President Trump became president, he issued an executive order basically saying that just because a woman can come to the United States and give birth shouldn't automatically make that baby an American citizen. And he was trying to change the 14th Amendment. And the courts this morning decided that no, they are citizens. So a lot of the right are upset. But here's the one thing that you got to think about. Okay, they're legal citizens. Can't deport them. But you can deport the parents. You can get rid of the parents. And you would think that they'll take their child with them. If the parents are here illegally, deport them back to where they came. Now, here's what I see happening, and it's been happening for years. Now we're going to see an influx of people asking for tourist visas, and these women are going to come here pregnant and hopefully give birth while they're here or overstay their visa and give birth, thinking that they'll be allowed to stay in the United States. Well, another way to combat that is if you start suspecting a certain country of sending their pregnant women over here, China, then we stop issuing the tourist visas. You don't need to visit while you're pregnant. Now, the second decision that came out with the U.S. Supreme Court this morning was on transgender, where men who couldn't make it in the men's world of sports, they decided that they wanted to become girls so they could be winners. And they went into the girls' sports. And they dominated because they were stronger than the women. And they're being allowed to change in the girls' locker rooms. And the U.S. Supreme Court basically upheld 2 different states that outlawed transgender men or men from playing in girls' sports. They said, yep, absolutely legal. There is no equality. And we're talking about, men running in track against girls, swimming against girls, where they're stronger. It was noted in girls' volleyball that the nets are lower than the men's nets. So when these guys were hitting the ball, not only are they more powerful and stronger, but the nets were lower. And there's so many injuries that was coming out of girls' volleyball because they were just overpowering the other girl or the girls. Now, here's a couple of thoughts. These transgender men say, we're women, we identify as women, and we are women. Well, it's not what your birth certificate said. And when you die, if there's a, what do they call it? Where the coroner does an autopsy, they're going to come back with, you were a male. And if archaeologists ever dig up your bones, they're going to say you were a male or a female. None of this I identify as. So it was funny. There's a girl out there that she just talks to all the lefties and the homosexuals, and they always try to get rid of her. And she's never offensive. She just asks them simple questions. And she went to a black male that was apparently gay at a pride event. And she said, hey, if I say I'm black, and she's a white girl, and she goes, if I say I'm black and I identify as black, am I black? He looked at her and he chuckled. He goes, no, you're not black. She goes, why not? He goes, because you're not black. She goes, okay, what if I identify as a male? And he got stunned. What could he say? He chuckled again, embarrassed, and just walked away. The hypocrisy is amazing. So anyways, folks, lots of things going on. Again. Oh, here's something else. Putin, apparently the Russian president, Russia's having their ass handed to them by Ukraine. And Putin told his ally, the dictator in Belarusia, to open up another front against Ukraine and attack Ukraine. Ukraine found out and told Belarus, go ahead, do it. We'll wipe you out. And gave him a deadline to pull his troops away from the border or else. Well, he met that deadline. He backed off quickly. But Putin is just losing troops and equipment left and right. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of Russian troops are no longer breathing. You know, Ukraine's taken losses, but Ukraine right now seems to have the advantage. And Russia's losing it. One of their generals, he went online with a video and basically said, I need to meet with Putin. We need to talk about this, that we're losing this war. And we need to meet and do something because we just keep losing men. Next day, the general was arrested. And within a day, he was tried and convicted for being a Nazi. He's disappeared. Russian journalists are asking, where is he? What happened? And the Russian courts are like, oh, we don't talk about this.
In the last 7 days, Vladimir Putin lost an ally, lost a dictator, and lost a believer. The dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, just publicly defied a direct Kremlin demand. Then we have the president of Serbia, one of Russia's last remaining friends in Europe, being forced out of office, and of course, the Western converts who moved to Russia because they believed it was a Western utopia are now publicly admitting that they were lied to. The system that Putin hides behind is starting to crack. But let's start with the Russian commander we covered in our last video, the one guy who was directly threatening a mutiny. Well, we have an update on that, and I'm sure you guys have guessed what it is. If you watched our last week's video, you remember Alexander Lunin, the former battalion commander who recorded a viral video appealing directly to Putin, demanding that the Kremlin fix the conditions on the front lines or face a military mutiny. Those were his exact words. That video got more than 50 million views, and now Kremlin has responded, not in a way that he was expecting. Lunin has been arrested now before he could even reach Kremlin to talk with Putin. And according to the Russian judiciary website, so this is the court website where you can look up anyone's name, he was convicted of displaying extremist symbols, specifically Nazi symbols. Now, unfortunately, only information we have from this website is that he was arrested, a hearing has taken place, and a ruling has been issued. But we don't exactly know what the ruling was, aka we don't know what the punishment he's facing. That's because the court refuses to say that publicly. When Russian journalists reached out to the court to ask for information, they just said, hey, we don't discuss this in public. So you guys can make of that what you want. But now let's shift our focus to...
So, Ukraine has just been drone attacks after drone attacks. They're basically surrounded Crimea, and the Russians are trapped. Russia's running out of gasoline. They said in Moscow that there's just no gasoline. And that one of Putin's best friends and aides, he was suddenly killed, and they didn't say how he died. So, what's going on with Russia? Now, we do know the Russians and the Chinese were rearming the Iranians during the 10 weeks that there was supposed to be a truce, and that's how Iran keeps firing missiles. But you would think that Russia would not be supplying Iran. They're running out of weapons for themselves, much less giving them away. Here's the strange thing. There's a heat wave going on, and I guess this weekend across most of the United States and Canada, there's going to be some heat advisories, but Europe is suffering bad. And they've had up to 1,400 people killed by heat. 40 to 50 people alone in France have drowned in the rivers trying to escape the heat. But the deputy mayor of Paris, someone who's real important in the world, she basically blames the United States for this. That's our fault. That we cause climate change. And that we have too many people using air conditioning. And the air conditioners are causing a change in the climate. Because apparently in Europe, while you may be able to buy an air conditioner, you're not allowed to use them. And it's believed that they actually watch your electricity and your usage. And if your electricity starts climbing, next thing you know, there's going to be a knock at your door by the police and confiscating your air conditioner. That's what I saw in a couple of videos this morning. But yeah, we're responsible for the heat wave in Europe. You know, these people are still pushing climate change. Well, you know, the climate is always going to be changing, whether we're here or not. But here's one of the cool facts. The ice pack in the Arctic is thicker this year than it was last year, and much thicker than it was back in 2011. So they kept claiming that, you know, Arctic ice pack, it's going to melt. It's going to raise the water levels around the world in the ocean. And cities are going to drown. Okay, you know, keep saying that. Now, there's been a lot of bad earthquakes going around the world lately. The sun may be involved, they're saying, because the sun gives off magnetic storms and pulses, and it has every few years these really strong ones, and it could be affecting Earth. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. But here's one thing that came out in Venezuela, and you'll see in the video. Under the dictatorship of two of the former Venezuelan presidents, they brought in communist China and Chinese construction companies to build massive buildings and housing for the poor. And we're talking like 1,600 buildings in just one small area. Well, I don't know about building codes in Venezuela, but a lot of them were built on land that wasn't too stable. A lot of them were built on landfills. And the buildings, they're finding out, they were built with foam. They may have had some steel as support. They put a small, coating of concrete, but all these big beams were foam. So the earthquake hits, and you'll see in the video just massive destruction. And right now, I think they're claiming 1,400 to 1,700 people have been found dead. They're missing thousands, and we're talking up to 25,000 or more. A couple thousand injured. And there's aid coming from around the world. We're seeing Americans, Mexican, Colombians. We're seeing rescuers, search teams coming from around the world to help the Venezuelans. But they're saying it was cheap Chinese construction. And they just did it as cheaply as they could and made money or got oil from Venezuela. And it's the Chinese that were responsible for this. So, who knows?
On the evening of June 24th, Venezuela's northwestern coastal region was hit by a rare double earthquake. Within 39 seconds, two main shocks struck in sequence, measuring magnitude 7.2 and 7.5. As of official figures released on June 29th, the death toll has risen to more than 1,450. Over 3,238 people have been injured. More concerning, as many as 68,000 people are still reported missing. Reports indicate that nearly 800 buildings across the country have collapsed, with many more severely damaged. A large number of structures suffered what is known as pancake collapse. Videos circulating online show severe destruction in the hardest hit coastal areas of La Guaira state. Coastal high-rise buildings were reduced to rubble, roads were heavily damaged, and many structures collapsed like cardboard. An analysis by Microsoft's AI for Good Lab estimated that about one-third of nearly 30,000 buildings in the city were damaged. As rescue efforts continue and residents report slow official response, concerns over construction quality have added to public frustration. A video filmed by frontline rescue workers in Venezuela has spread widely on social media. In the footage, a man is seen breaking apart a collapsed building's wall by hand. The outer layer appears to be a thin coating of concrete. Once removed, the interior is revealed to be filled with large blocks of expanded polystyrene foam, or EPS.
Looking at this thing, this is foam plastic, man. These columns are full of damn foam plastic. Damn the government. They put a bit of cement on the outside, but the inside is packed with foam. That's why it all came down with this thing. They say it was caused by an earthquake, but that's a complete lie. Touch it. It's all foam in the middle. No one is stupid. Now, I understand why this whole thing collapsed. They did this for the money. Man, this is not a small issue.
Nearby rescue workers also appeared shocked by the poor construction quality. Some online comments question whether the structure was built as part of a CITIC construction project and whether this could help explain why nearly 800 buildings collapsed after the earthquake. Other comments describe the situation as not only a natural disaster but also the result of human factors, pointing to construction practices linked to Chinese state-affiliated contractors. Among the worst affected were high-rise housing complexes under Venezuela's state housing program, the Great Housing Mission. Public records show that several of these projects were built by Chinese companies, including CITIC Construction and China CAMC Engineering, which served as major contractors. In the heavily affected La Guaira state, the Urbanismo Hugo Chavez social housing project in Catia-La-Mar, built by CITIC Construction, suffered major damage and large-scale collapse during the earthquake. According to the AFP, 192 buildings in the complex were severely damaged by the strong shaking. Survivors and reporters on site said that movement along a strike-slip fault caused several apartment blocks at the back of the complex to fully collapse and become level with the ground. Other buildings developed serious structural cracks and are now at risk of further collapse. All 3,400 apartments in the community have been evacuated and many residents are now sheltering outdoors using mattresses placed on the streets. In addition, infrastructure in the Port C of La Guaira state was also heavily damaged and has largely stopped operating. The modernization and expansion of the port in 2011 were mainly led by China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC, and CITIC Construction. On April 28, 2017, the upgraded deep-water container terminal was officially opened by then Venezuelan director Nicolas Maduro. Records show that in November 2005, CITIC Construction signed a general contracting agreement with Venezuela's Ministry of Housing for nationwide housing development. The project included 20,000 residential units, along with supporting public facilities covering a total construction area of about 1.7 million square meters. The Tiuna social housing project within this program was developed under a financing and EPC turnkey model. It included 116 buildings and 13,034 housing units with supporting infrastructure, and it was the largest housing project carried out by Chinese companies in Venezuela at the time. During the recent earthquake, many buildings in this project also showed widespread cracking and some partial collapses. These large-scale projects were once described as major examples of China's overseas construction and international cooperation. They are now also being referenced in broader discussions about construction performance in overseas infrastructure projects.
So anyways, I will finish with that. Lots of things to talk about. Hope you enjoyed the videos that I've included. And today, Monday, June 30th, the last day of the month. And hey, California, guess what? Your gas tax goes up by 2 cents a gallon tomorrow. Thank you, Governor Newsom. So take care of each other. Take care of your family. Keep your eyes open. Be aware of your surroundings. There are sleeper cells of terrorists everywhere. They've already attacked in Canada. They've attacked in England. They've attacked here. And just be aware. If you see something, say something. Again, take care of your family and friends. And I hope you enjoy what I have to say. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe button. leave a comment. I would love to know what your thoughts are. And just stay safe, folks. The quote I'll leave you today is, quote, Benjamin Franklin said, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately." Talking about the American Revolution and our war against the British. Okay, folks. Take care. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. See ya.